Welcome. My name is Josette Diaz, and I am a creative strategist and self-awareness coach for women in midlife. And I have the privilege today of having Stephanie McAuliffe on with us, and she is a boundary strategist, and the she is also the founder of the Way of the Diamond Warrior. And so welcome back to A Soulful Pause. We've been gone for a minute and here we are, so excited to spend time with you in a space where we slow down just enough to hear what our soul has been whispering beneath the noise. I'm your host, Josette Diaz, as I mentioned earlier, and I help women shift from survival to a soul-led life. So today I'm joined by someone whose work meets this mission at a beautifully profound level. So, as I mentioned, our guest is Stephanie McAuliffe, and she speaks, writes, and teaches on the human condition through the lens of energetic patterning. As a multidimensional transformation coach and energy healer, she helps individuals understand the impact of trauma held within the body and how clearing it restores vitality, truth, and personal freedom. Stephanie is the founder of The Way of the Diamond Warrior, a path shaped by her 27 years on Wall Street and her commitment to guiding leaders out of the constructs that quietly restrict their lives. She is also the author of two international bestsellers, which we are going to dive into a bit today: The Impact of Silent Self-Mastery Practices for Women, and The Message in the Bottle, Finding Hope and Peace Amidst the Chaos of Living with an Alcoholic. Her perspective blends lived experience, energetic wisdom, and the courage to dismantle patterns that no longer serve us, which is exactly what we explore here on this show. Stephanie, good morning to you. It's morning for us right now, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Your work lives at the intersection of what so many midlife women are waking up to. I see it everywhere, and it's that realization that the body holds all of our unspoken history and the healing that requires a deeper conversation with ourselves. So I'd love to start us off with a quick hello from you first before I dive into our questions. So, how are you today?
Good morning, Josette. It's so good to be here, and I'm excited for this conversation because we've had a few and we've touched on some of these subjects, and today we get to dive a little bit deeper.
Oh, I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation. We spoke, I don't know, last month sometime,
hmm
and we just touched on so many things. I mean, you know, one and the same. I'm looking at a mirror in a lot of ways, so I
hmm
really enjoy speaking to you. And we have a lot of good things that we're going to talk about today. So I'd like to start in with highlighting how trauma, let's just go right on into it,
hmm
how trauma and emotional imprinting gets stored in the body. And for women in midlife who sense something is rising, they may not be able to name it, yet what are the first signs that the body is asking for release and reconnection?
The first sign, I think, are our aches and our pains
Mm,
that don't go away.
yeah.
And there's, and even the amount of sometimes the weight that we carry can be symbolic of the energetic weight that we
Yeah.
carry.
Yeah.
We, as women, especially those of us who are now in midlife, grew up in a time where we didn't have a voice.
Hmm.
We didn't have a lot of agency. Our mothers and our grandmothers didn't. And so we learned from people who were taught to swallow their emotions.
Yeah.
And if you think of it, think of, the soap bubble blowy things.
Hmm.
When you're blowing into the soap outside, your energy in your air, your oxygen creates a bubble.
Yeah.
And it'll float in the air for a while and then it will pop. And that energy in the soap dissipates outside. But if you think of that bubble like a situation or an emotion that you're not able to speak about or give a
Mm.
voice to, it's as if you swallow that bubble.
That's right.
And we swallow hundreds and
Yeah.
thousands of bubbles that begins in childhood. And at some point, our body can't take it anymore. There's nothing more to swallow. And this is why I think this time of life is actually so empowering,
Hmm.
because we finally get to say no to the old BS
Yes.
that we have been tolerating for years.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. You've hit on some things that I think I'd like to kind of expand on, and maybe we can play
Okay.
with this a little bit. One of the things that you said about, I love that you use this metaphor around the bubbles and that you're swallowing them, because I think that it also isn't just, we've learned from women that um, like my mother was a young mother, so she was 18 when I was born in 65. So that meant that she was, in the midst of the feminist movement. And she, probably had some ideas around that. In fact, I know she did. And yet she still was living with all of the other historical ways of being that women had, and so she still swallowed. She didn't have practice. She didn't know how to move in that new world. And that new world wasn't even really developed then. So I think that's one thing to touch on. And so it's that genetic history from our families that gets passed down that are part of those bubbles, that we are still swallowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that you said that I find really interesting was you were talking about the bubbles. And what was the last thing that you said? You said something else that was really
We
important.
finally get to a point where we're not willing to tolerate
Yes,
all the things that we've been taught to. So, this can be a really empowering time
yes,
in our life.
yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
replaying what you said.
Yeah.
What brings to my mind when you speak of that is that I truly believe that midlife becomes our second adolescence. I was just watching something, somebody did a reel yesterday on Instagram, and it was about renaming the crone phase that women go through in older age.
Mm-hmm.
And that symbolically starts at midlife and right around there, like 10 years in or so, whatever, depending on when you start that part of your life
Mm-hmm.
physiologically. And and when that is occurring, the thing that comes to mind about that second adolescence is that we spent the first half of our lives developing identities to become adults. We do that starting in our late adolescence. And then we develop that further, whether, in your 20s, whether you spend that time in part of that time in college or you go right to work, whatever it is, you're developing those identities to be an adult. And then you live in that when you feel settled with those identities. And that's how you begin families, you create marriages, you maybe don't, and you become career minded. Whatever it is that your life path takes, where it takes you, is that first adolescence result of those identities. Then in midlife, it shows up, and we have an opportunity to go through a second adolescence in the sense of no longer having to follow other people's rules and expectations to develop the woman that you really are meant to become.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that. I love that process, that midlife. I think so many, I have friends that go, oh, I'm getting older. Oh, menopause. Oh, midlife. Ah, la, la, la. And it's really such a blessing. I mean, I feel so great to be at this age, so honored to be at this age. And I love all of that. And so I think that what you're talking about as far as for midlife women having this sense of wanting to release and reconnect after they've been swallowing all the bubbles is so important. So, what do
Yeah.
you think of that?
So there's a couple things that come to mind, and I think of the idea of the midlife crisis,
Hmm.
and men get divorced, they go out and buy a boat, they go out and buy a car, they go in, they look for bigger toys to make them feel better.
Right.
For women, I actually think this is why personal development has really taken off.
Hmm.
Because I know 15 years ago when I really was leaving Wall Street, my marriage was falling apart,
Yeah.
and I was looking for something different.
Hmm.
I stepped into the metaphysical and energy healing and oracle cards and working with healers all around the world and becoming a student of myself
Hmm.
because so much of me had been shut down. And
Yeah.
this is multi generational. I am at least the fourth generation of women in my family who were sexually abused and not protected, and there was functional alcoholism and active alcoholism and all the other things that go with it.
Yeah.
So when my life was falling apart,
Hmm.
it was actually a huge gift for me. And I also think about our Saturn return is every 30 years.
Right.
And as we're stepping into it in our late 20s, it's when we're getting more serious in our career.
Hmm.
We're partnering, settling down, maybe having kids. And then in our late 50s,
Yeah.
it comes around again. And it can become a huge shedding. So rather than being in a quote unquote midlife crisis, we're shedding the things and looking for satisfaction in a different way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the second Saturn return is one where we always have free will and we always have the choice to look in the mirror and look at our patterns and say, is this something I want to continue? Is this something that if I'm to live another 20 or 30 years, I want to continue in the way I have been, or do I want to create something new for myself? And
Right.
it's a huge opportunity
Hmm.
for our own personal growth. I like the idea that crone was seen as this negative thing, and yet I actually took a 4 week workshop with a woman, and she around second Saturn return,
Hmm.
and she frames it around the story of Baba Yaga and going into the woods and connecting with our wisdom,
Hmm.
because there's so much wisdom that we have and so much we can gain
Yeah.
by saying no to the old
Right.
and then really stepping into what do I want to do for the rest of my life?
Right. And asking that question in a deeper way. Like if you ask that question when you're 20, you're going to have a whole different answer than you
Oh,
do.
and I had no clue when I was 20. And
Right.
and
Yeah.
even when
Even
I left
30.
Wall Street, if you had told me that I would be doing the work that I'm
Right.
doing now, I would have said, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And I've stepped back into the gifts that were hidden.
Hmm.
And it was for me to reconnect with them. And that's
Yeah.
available for all of us.
Right. Exactly. There's something that I use in my work called the golden thread to help women reconnect with that
Mm-hmm.
because it is lost in that in our beginnings. Because when we're children, we come just wide open, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is why looking back to your childhood and there's a whole set of things that you can do in that arena. I do really feel, though, that it's important to bring that child along with you because that's that healing process, and not to change the subject, because I really would
Mm-hmm.
like to go into talking a little bit more. You introduced the subject of patterns, and so I'd like to kind of dive into that a little bit more before I go off on something else with you, because I could talk to you about a million things. So you teach about energetic patterns and shaping the human condition, which is what we're talking about. So what patterns do you see most often in the high performing women? You've been on Wall Street, you know a thing or two. And how do they silently limit their expression, the vitality, or their leadership?
Mm. There's layers to this, as there
Yes.
always are to patterns. The first that comes to me is the push to prove our worthiness
Mm-hmm.
and of silencing who we truly are as leaders in order to fit into a predominantly male
Yeah.
paradigm. And I even think of, and I think back to when I was 6 or 7, my mother married for the second time.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, in addition to my 2 younger brothers, I had 3 older stepbrothers.
Oh, wow.
I was surrounded by masculine energy. And in order to get along, it was playing basketball. It was watching, there was, I don't know, some TV show that they always wanted to watch. Rarely was I able to turn on the TV and not have what I wanted to watch
Yeah.
the decision usurped.
Hmm.
And this pattern continued. So, because personally for me and so many women that I work with
Hmm.
didn't feel seen in their younger years,
Right.
we think that if I just push a little harder, if I work a little harder, if I put in a few more hours, if I take on more things, I will finally be seen as worthy.
Yes.
And part of the shedding is, why am I giving my power away to somebody who really doesn't give a rat's ass about my well being?
Hmm. Hmm.
And instead look at, how have I not honored myself?
Hmm.
That was a very big wake up call for me. And it's also with the people that I work with, because we think that we have everything under control,
That's right.
but what we're trying to do is control everything around us.
That is so true. And that pattern again is I think insidious and it layered, as you mentioned in the beginning, because I've even found this is one thing that I think that so many women, this feels so deeply personal, this reconnection process.
Yes.
And it then can become we're used to holding our own issues, problems, hurt, sadness, whatever emotions that we're experiencing. We're used to holding those close to our sleeve or close in our heart. We don't really share that or shed that with others. And I really feel that so many women, this is what I found with my own clientele, is that
Mm-hmm.
you know, they think they can learn that in a book, or they can, find the answer outside of themselves, and that's going to fix it all. And they can become very one track. Like they read something that was really good, they feel, inspired by it. They then can see how it fits in their life. Yet what I think that is unclear, and it takes time and sort of tripping over the pattern to recognize that there's more. And when you're so close to yourself, you can't really always see it. And
Right.
so you can do it yourself, sure. You can do it yourself. It's just going to take you a certain amount of time because you're so close, you can't see the truth all the time. And
Yeah.
go
And
ahead.
this is why even I work with other energy healers,
Exactly.
because we are not meant to do it on our own.
Right.
Yet we have been so trained to bypass
Yeah.
what it is that we're really feeling. And I'm feeling an urge to go down a rabbit hole that we talked about before we started
Yes,
recording.
you're welcome to do it if you like.
Is there is a book that has been making millions of dollars the whole let them theory with
Yeah.
Mel Robbins. And she just had a piece in the New York Times about making your holidays more peaceful. And
Mhm.
it was all about tolerating bad behavior. It's we are not meant to tolerate bad behavior, and yet we have been, especially women, have been it's been ingrained in us that family is more important than the individual. And
Yeah.
I call bull on that,
Yeah.
because what this does is this keeps us in traumatic situations.
Mm.
Because if you're thinking about a holiday gathering and the people who are going to be there, and you feel the hair on your neck, the back of your neck stand up, and you feel a knot in your gut, and your whole body goes into fight, flight, or freeze,
Hmm.
that is a good indication that maybe the holidays are going to be better spent with chosen family. The whole let them theory is continuing the paradigm of bypassing what it is that we're really feeling. And it is time that we gave a voice to it and said no to the toxic behavior that we have been taught to tolerate for generation upon generation. And this is why so many of us are sick, because we're carrying all those bubbles that we
Yeah.
swallowed. And it's time for us to stop being sick and tired
Hmm.
about the weight of maintaining a family and the thought of a family that doesn't truly support us.
Hmm. Yes. And I think that, you know, the whole theory around let them was originally led by a woman named Cassie Phillips
And her poem.
and her
Yeah.
poem. And she wrote that poem, and it's not a big secret. It's based off of the Serenity Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And so this isn't something new. And
Right.
also, I think that, what's unfortunate is that the message of let them is basically don't do, just let them do whatever they're doing. And what is unfortunate about that is that you cannot control what other people do, right? You can't. You can control you.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to just your fundamental teaching on emotional intelligence of your circle of influence. And so there is something beneficial in the serenity prayer, and it is not about allowing others to just do what they do and ignore it. Let them do
Right.
whatever they're doing and you just do you. It's not necessarily, that's not the intention of it from my understanding.
And it's not. I was in Al Anon for years,
Hmm.
and it's really one of, what's really feeding my soul.
Yeah.
And if I'm with people who are toxic and
Hmm.
saying toxic things, that's really, I don't want to be around that.
Right. It allows you to make a deeper choice, right?
Right.
And that might be uncomfortable for other people.
It can be very uncomfortable. And I even have heard from certain family members, specifically directly told me, get out of your artsy fartsy lifestyle, because I wasn't working a corporate job anymore. And that was actually said to me when I was in the middle of healing breast cancer.
Wow.
So people get very uncomfortable when
Right.
you choose a path that
Hmm.
they don't agree with
Right. Or understand.
or understand.
Yeah.
And it brings up fear in them, because sometimes for them to really look at you
Hmm.
would cause them to look in their own mirror.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And not everyone's ready to do that.
No, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we need to tolerate toxic, racist, bigoted
Hmm.
behavior.
That's right. Yeah. So what would you suggest, since we're talking about this
Mm-hmm.
topic, in order to not bypass the situation? What are the best ways? Because we have another big holiday coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some of the ways that we can diplomatically, because I'm all about diplomacy, diplomatically function in a family that, because not everyone is really willing to walk away, right? Or to,
Right. It's hard.
it
It's
is
a
hard.
hard process.
Yes. And that may come in time. So where
Mm-hmm.
do they start? How do they start to allow themselves to be more comfortable in a situation that's uncomfortable for them?
Learn how to protect your energy.
Hmm.
And there are many things that you can do, and I even have a short self-paced course on that. Another is I remember a holiday a number of years ago, and someone used a racist word,
Hmm.
and just said to them, "Please don't use that word. It makes me feel uncomfortable." When we take responsibility for how we feel, and it's fill in the blanks of when you, whatever it is, do this, it makes me feel. And so I did this with this person. When you say that word, it's not something I agree with. It makes me feel really uncomfortable. Everyone is equal. And that person stopped using that word.
Wow.
Sometimes, so it's not pointing the finger
Hmm.
at what they're doing. It's taking the responsibility for how we feel.
Yes.
Sometimes you need to walk out of a room and go get some fresh air and ground yourself.
Hmm.
There was another family holiday where a very toxic person, and part of the challenge is people don't realize how much they project their own energy. So, this is why when we get together, it can feel like we all turn into 3 and 4 year olds again. Because it's all the things that are unspoken, the jealousies, the comparisons that you got, I couldn't,
Yeah, yeah.
all the stories, the
You
bubbles that
always.
we internalized,
Yeah.
and feeling like so and so liked you better and you got more.
Hmm.
And a lot of those things are true, and we don't need to continue to perpetuate those stories.
Yeah.
Yet, because so few of us have been taught how to process our emotions, it's like they ooze out of us. If you've ever walked into a room and you felt like you could cut the air with a knife,
Hmm.
it's filled with people's energies.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up getting a pine branch and let it soak out in the sun for a couple of hours. And then after that person left, I came in and I swept all the rooms.
Mm.
So I did some witchy stuff, which I like to do. But it's really one of when someone says something that is really uncomfortable,
Right.
taking responsibility for how we feel and say, please don't say that.
Hmm.
The person may or may not listen.
Yeah.
And that is when sometimes we do need to go take a walk and excuse ourselves and
Yeah.
not continue to be in a toxic conversation. And it was a bit challenging. I moved here to Texas to care for my father.
Hmm.
And we had many conversations about what's happening over in Israel and Palestine. And he is of a certain generation and believed a certain way and couldn't separate out the people from the military.
Mm.
And so at some point, when you see that a conversation has nowhere to go, end it.
Yeah. It's agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone has a right to their own opinion.
Absolutely. And this is where trying to force somebody to come over to your side.
Hmm.
My brother and my father used to get in huge battles about global warming.
Yeah.
And my brother would call him and try to convince him about we need to do this, we need to do that. And again, people aren't going to be told how to think.
Hmm.
And that caused a really big rift between the two of them that was unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
But both of them dug in so far to their own opinions that it became, like I said, a rift that really didn't need to happen because they truly cared about each other.
Right. It's almost like sometimes we will cling to the um that moment of I can't be wrong about this.
And will also take, because they don't agree with me,
Right.
they don't like me. It's like there's
Yes.
something
It's
wrong with
personal.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where it's really important to separate out. It's just like in our work.
Yes.
And I've been doing a series on the 111 ways we're silenced, and there was a comment about people not being able to take criticism,
Mm-hmm.
and especially people who are neurodivergent. They take it very personally. Giving somebody feedback on their work is about their work, it's not about them.
Right.
And being able to separate the two is really, really important.
That's such a good point because I think that there's so often I have this experience when I was in my previous career in healthcare. I built this really wonderful career. I loved it for years and years. When I chose to have a second child and I got remarried, that shifted my perspective of what I was planning on for my life. So I left the career. And I didn't realize how much I ingrained my identity in that career,
Mm-hmm.
and that's who I had become. And so it was very difficult for me I had to reinvent and re-relate to myself in a whole different way. And that was so challenging. And again, I found the same experience when my children, I'm an empty nester.
Mm-hmm.
I downsized, and so I don't even have my kids' furniture. Do you know how many years I've spent lugging their things around with me?
And
And
this is part of our midlife. This is
right,
part of our evolution.
yes,
Because the same for me, within a year, my
yeah,
marriage ended and then my 27-year career ended. And I was like, what do I do with myself?
right,
Because trying to keep him sober and then working 12 to 14 hours a day were my complete identity. And
right.
then, yes, it can feel very jarring. And I
Hmm.
think this is where people, out of fear, hold on to how things have been. And
Yeah,
we see this in society. We saw this in the pandemic. People wanted to go back to the way the things were.
right.
And yet,
Yeah,
collectively, we had all been asking for more time. And
yes,
the universe gave it to us
that's
just in a
right.
way that we had not asked.
Yes, and it forced us to actually have that time and slow down. And then many people got used to it, which I think is a little tragic that there are so many companies that are requiring. I hear it from,
Mm-hmm.
friends and family, that they're starting to require them to come back into the office, and they just don't want to.
Yeah.
It feels less productive,
Well,
there's not as much, sorry to interrupt, there's not
yeah.
as much work-life balance.
And when we're in the office, we're in the energy with everybody else.
Hmm.
We are, the office is a petri dish of all of our
Yeah.
unhealed wounds.
Right.
And people are bringing things, plus the anger of having to go back to the office, and people with them trying to prove their worthiness,
Hmm.
and the competition and the comparison, and especially for women, there are, you're moving up the corporate ladder,
Yeah.
as I was when I was on Wall Street.
Hmm.
There were very few senior director level positions, even less going further up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is where I think it's really important for us as women to support each other. And it's not to exclude men,
Hmm.
and yet it's one of when we support each other,
Right.
it's knowing that what's meant for us will never be withheld.
Hmm.
And being in that, the energy of that, come in, we we do a good day's work.
Yeah.
and then leave it at the door. This is part of boundaries as well.
Mm-hmm.
And claim that rest of the day for ourselves.
Yes. Because I think that, the days of women thinking they can do all of it all at once no longer really exist.
It doesn't. And I think of work life balance, if you put a coin on its side,
Mm-hmm.
work life balance is like trying to walk on
Yeah,
the edge of that coin.
right. I had a teacher who would say that she really didn't like the word balance. She liked the word harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is such a great word to use when we're looking at creating a life that um, allows us to have, because what we're really talking about with work-life balance is having a life personally that
Yes.
is you're not all consumed about work all the time. And I know I have friends that are in corporate that have that experience, that work is predominantly in the front. And when we've had conversations around it, it's like there's no way to shift that for them. It's a requirement, especially women that work in male-dominated
Mm-hmm.
industries. And I really feel that if we can interject harmony, so that indicates ebb and flow, right? It
Yes.
allows us to be more in tune with our own personal rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can notice when that rhythm is rising to call us to slow down a little bit.
I love the energy of harmony
Yeah.
because there are times where we need to put more focus,
Hmm.
a higher percentage on something. And other, it's like a swing of the pendulum because nothing is 50-50.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh. And it can't be all the time, right? It's always
No.
shifting and the
I
levels.
heard something, I think it was like last year, that if you see an EKG
Hmm.
that's flat, it means you're dead.
Yeah.
Right? There are the highs and the lows, and that is part of life.
Hmm.
We're not always down at the lower levels and we're not always up at the higher ones. And so being with the energy of, yeah, there's some things I need to deal with, and
Yes.
it doesn't have to be all consuming.
Hmm. So, since we're talking about this and we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about high-powered careers, and you were on Wall Street for 27 years, how did that environment teach you um, about what the costs are of living outside of your own energetic truth? Because we're on the topic.
Mm. During my time on Wall Street, I had two heart attack scares.
Mm,
The first, I was diagnosed with a hiatal hernia, um, married to husband, alcoholic number one.
yeah.
And the second time, I was diagnosed as having high blood pressure. So I was not living in my energetic truth because I was pouring everything into my career. I was always pushing.
Hmm.
In a way, though, my career was the perfect foil to
Mm,
protect me from the things I wasn't ready to yet heal.
yeah. Yeah.
So it was really one of, well, and there's another thought actually I want to go to first.
Okay.
If you had asked me during my career on Wall Street, did I trust myself? I would have said absolutely.
Hmm.
But to me, back then, trust meant I felt like I had control and a tight grip on everything.
Right.
And I was wound up tighter than a top,
Hmm.
getting up early, and I loved my career. I was in systems and then project and program management. I loved seeing how all the pieces and parts fit together. I got to be creative and analytical, so I got to use both sides of my
Yeah.
brain. And it really wasn't until I was ready to look in the mirror that everything fell apart.
Hmm.
So I now look back and I can see I didn't really truly trust myself. I trusted that I could control my life and
Hmm.
the things around me. And I've learned through the serenity prayer that I am the only one that I can control. And most of the time, the best thing for me to do is to surrender and to let go.
Right.
And that's take time. That's taken time, and it's come in layers. And I've realized that there was so much I still needed to heal, because even though I had been to therapy and I had been to some 12 step, those gave me a box to sit in that helped me define the labels of I experienced this, I grew up in this is the family history.
Hmm.
It was really when my life fell apart that I began to step outside of that box
Hmm.
because I didn't want to be held back by those labels anymore.
Yeah. Completely understand that. I think there's a time and a place to use compartmentalization,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be a helpful tool, and it can help you not um, continually re-traumatize yourself over and over about things. And it's good to look at, and then it needs to be set in its own place in the
Absolutely.
past where it
Yeah.
belongs, right?
Yeah.
Yet, you're right. There are moments when that's no longer needed.
Yeah. And I have seen so many people who are stuck in their stories
Hmm.
because that defines them.
Yes. Right.
And I did the same thing. I look back at my first book.
Yeah.
I was still very much defined by many of the things that I talk about in the book, and it's still a great book to help families of alcoholics.
Right.
It's really one of very quick story.
Hmm.
Back in, I think it was 2017, New Jersey has something called JALCON, where it's a day of meetings between AA and Al Anon. I had never been to an AA meeting, so I went. And a man sat in the room and he told the story of how when he was a teenager, his father forced him to do heroin together, which is a horrible thing for any adult to foist that on any child. But then I led an adult children of alcoholics meeting. And the man came in and he told the exact same story. And the light bulb went off for me because when I thought in the rooms
Hmm.
of people telling the same story over and over and over again, and that but there was something about that day and this man coming in and back to back meetings,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh. And that was when I really stepped more deeply into energy healing,
Hmm.
because therapy and 12 step can be very analytical,
Hmm.
and that's like that middle box.
Right.
But then stepping into the energy healing, we actually get to clear the energy of all of those popped bubbles
Yeah. Yeah.
and let go of those stories that, and the energy of the stories that have so defined who we are.
Hmm.
And this is where we get to, instead of buying a new red sports car,
Yeah.
we get to step into deeper levels of our own healing
Hmm.
and shed the expectations and the frustrations and the tolerations and the things of the past. Like, who am I underneath all of this?
That's
And
right.
we get to play.
Yeah.
It doesn't all have to be hard and serious, and there are serious aspects to this.
Yes.
Yet when we get to look at our patterns and then the energy connected with them, and we decide that I'm going to let go of this, oh, that's where freedom and our
Right.
power really comes through.
And you do have to take that wave. You have to ride that wave
Mm-hmm.
in order to get to the freedom of it.
We
And I
can't
think,
just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. What were you going to
Say,
say?
we can't just say let them to ourselves.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are not here to spiritually bypass our own life.
Yeah. And I think many people may have a resistance to that. I have a friend who we were discussing. something around she had like hurt her ankle. And so we were talking about I'm a Reiki master teacher, have been
Mm-hmm.
for, 20 years now. And so we were doing an exchange with each other and so I was working with her on her ankle. And so we were talking about like, oh, well, what does this, it turned out that it had a lot to do with support
Mm-hmm.
and what she was going through in the time. And so I was asking her some probing questions and she's like, "Oh, I don't want to know. I don't want to know that." And so I think that there are people that do not want to dive deeper into those situations or
Mm-hmm.
have their perceptions change around people that they're close to or that are family members, and they would rather just leave everything is fine right where it is.
Yeah.
Which, I guess in some ways that's okay. If everything really truly is fine where it is, then there's no probing to be done. Yet
Mm-hmm.
there are other things that do occur, like when you're hurting yourself, there's something for you to know.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting. About, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I had a vision of a bridge,
Hmm.
and the middle of the bridge fell into the water. And about 70 to 80% of the people were on the back side of the bridge. And I think that speaks to the percentage of people who really don't want to do this work. It
Hmm.
means looking in the mirror. It
Yeah.
means taking family off of the pedestal we were taught to put them onto,
Hmm.
and seeing ourselves as equal, because we are all equal. We all bring our own gifts, but no one is really above anyone else.
Yes.
But
And
it's
you do,
really,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry,
Finish what you were saying. Sorry, Stephanie.
but there really is only that smaller percentage
Hmm.
of around 20% of the people who want to do the work. And I think those are the people where we invite in to say, let's go, let's play,
Yeah.
let's. It's like that EKG reading. It's some of it's going to be high and some of it can feel like crap. And
Right.
shadow work is not easy.
No.
And yet, when you are on the other side, you are the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. I find that like you can do some of that shadow work depending on what it is. There's definitely things that um, are going to have deep-seated emotions rise. That's part of the work. And then once you've done that piece, then the shadow work can be looked at in a less personalized way.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can invite the shadow in, you can sit with it, you can allow it to speak to you because it's there to teach you. And if we give ourselves the permission to go deeper with ourselves so that we can sit with the pain that we know is sitting underneath there, because you may think that you're over it, that you don't need to bring that up. That's too painful. Let's let it just sit where it is. That what that produces for you is dis-ease.
Mm-hmm.
It creates it has to go somewhere. It's going to leak somewhere in your life. And if you continue to ignore it, it will eventually show up in a big way.
Yes, it does.
So, we all think sometimes we can get away with something. We're never quite getting away with
We
something.
can for a while,
Right.
but then
And we think that it's
eventually
fine.
our body speaks to us. Our body is always talking to us.
Yeah.
And when we listen, this is where, if you've got a pain in your shoulder, well, what do I feel like I'm carrying?
Hmm.
Where is this coming from?
Hmm.
And ask, continue to ask, well, what's underneath this? And because it's
Right.
rarely also initially what we think it is. It's usually 2 or 3 levels deeper.
Hmm.
And that's when we can get to the answer. The other thing as well is our family history.
Yeah.
If you were to draw out, and I have a lot of my clients do this, and it's in my second book as well as one of the invitations.
Mhm.
If you draw out your family tree and you were to put one or two adjectives next to each person,
Yeah.
you will begin to see where some of your own patterns come from.
Oh, that's good.
And this is where energy healing is really important
Yes.
because science has shown that trauma is passed through the DNA. And
Hmm.
it's not just your mother, although you were in her womb for however many months you
Right.
were there. There was also a study being done of how anxiety was passed through the sperm from
Mm.
war veterans.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just mom. We know that, you
Hmm.
even go back 2 generations
Right.
and how people were systemically silenced. And it's fascinating to draw out that family tree
Yes. Yes.
because that will give you a lot of clues. Because some of the things we can be in the space of, I don't know where this comes from.
Right.
Well, sometimes it's not anything that we've done,
Uh-huh.
it's what we've biologically inherited.
And it goes the other end of the spectrum. Like do you watch oh, it's on PBS, the show about, I'm sorry, it just the name of it was right there and then I lost it. Who do you think you are? I think it is.
I've heard of it. I've never
Okay.
I've never watched it.
So it's a great show. I love it. I watch it all the time. And what I find fascinating is that you can have certain talents, right, that are passed down. Oh, that comes from my father's side or my mother's
Mm-hmm.
side. Well, of course, all the good is nice to acknowledge. And yet, we believe those things. Oh, well, I have a history of da 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 da. Da. And yet there's the shadow of all of that activity
The
that is,
trauma.
yes,
Yes.
passed in.
Yeah,
Exactly. So it goes both ways.
it does. And if you think about being in the womb for 7, 8, 9, 10
Hmm.
months, you were taking on all of the
Yeah.
emotions, all of the feelings that your birth mother
Yes.
was experiencing. And I even look at, so I too was born to a young mother. She was 19 when she had me, dropped out of college,
Mm-hmm.
got married, didn't really even, I start one of my talks was I was conceived in the back of a station wagon in a grapefruit grove over during spring break over a 6 pack of beer. So there was a lot of fear
Yeah.
of hiding a pregnancy, and then she couldn't hide it anymore because this was 1961.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all you're taking on all of that, and the
Hmm.
studies that show that toddlers can smell fear in their mothers.
Yes.
There's a
Wow.
lot of science behind this,
Hmm.
and yet it's hidden
Hmm.
because we are taught to don't look back. You can't change the past. Well, actually, we
We
can
can, yeah.
energetically change the past.
Hmm. You can
And
change your
that,
DNA.
right? Exactly. So, this is why what both of us do is so important because when we make the choice, that we say, I don't want to be defined by these things anymore. And
Right.
sometimes it's just a feeling. We don't even know what it is yet.
Hmm.
And we get curious.
Yeah.
This is when we make some of our biggest shifts. And I think this is a huge part of us as women
Hmm.
in this midlife journey of what I'm calling empowerment.
Mm, that's right. I love that. I mean, you talked about your book, The Impact of Silence. And this is where you're exploring self-mastery practices, which we've kind of touched on a few of
Mm-hmm.
these already. Which practice would you say is the most critical right now for women who are unraveling all of those old identities and moving toward more soul-led living?
The first is drawing out that family tree.
Mm, yeah, that's really
And
powerful.
there's a practice in there, and it's towards the end of the book. Each chapter has an invitation for the reader to go deeper in.
Hmm.
And I love using the poem Ho'oponopono.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Self forgiveness.
Yes.
Forgiving yourself for the things you did and didn't do
Hmm.
because you did what you did based on what you had at the time. You
Yes.
may have needed to protect yourself, you may have needed to stay, you may have needed to leave,
Hmm.
any number of things. We're so good at forgiving other people,
Hmm.
self forgiveness.
I love that you bring this up because I found many women, they self-abandon in so many small ways. And there's not an acknowledgement that they've even self-abandoned because that's how women are raised, is to continually self-abandon.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And
that feels normal, seems normal.
it does, and it starts when we're young.
Hmm.
And one of the things is when we do this and we
Yeah.
experience trauma, parts of ourselves splinter off.
Hmm. That's
And
right.
so when we do our healing
Yeah.
and we can invite our 4-year-old self back, or our 8-year-old, or our 12-year-old, or even our 22-year-old self back, through self forgiveness, we get to reintegrate the parts of ourselves that we did abandon.
Yeah.
And we all do it, men
Hmm.
and women. We make a choice that we think is right at the time. I stayed in 2 marriages for a number of years longer in both of them
Yeah.
because of A, B, C, and D.
Hmm.
And now I see why I made those choices.
Yes.
And it's like, would I make them now? No. And don't be a Monday morning quarterback and question the decision that you thought was right at the time.
Yeah. Hmm. I think sometimes, you do the best thing that you can do in the moment.
Exactly.
And there are times I've had, there was a time in my life where I was at a standstill. I did not know the decision to leave had certain consequences, and the
Mm-hmm.
decision to stay had certain consequences, and neither felt good.
Right.
And so I stood still. And then one day, life stepped in and said, "That's enough," and everything fell away.
Oh, you mean you got hit by a universal 2 by 4?
Oh, yes, big time.
9/11 was one of those for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was then that I started to put together the plan to leave. It's like,
Mm.
because I didn't want to be divorced like my mother and my brother, because I didn't, all these things I didn't want.
Hmm.
And yet that happened, and I was approaching my 40th birthday, and I remember this download with this message of like, life is too short.
Yeah.
I don't want to continue to live my life this way. So sometimes when we feel like we're at a standstill, start to make a list.
Hmm.
What would move you forward? And even if it's one small thing.
Hmm.
And sometimes beginning to make the list is the one small thing.
Right.
Because when we take one step, the universe will take 10 with
Yeah.
us. But we have to decide, I want something different.
Hmm.
And sometimes it is a shedding of what's not working to
Yes.
create space for even identifying what it is that we do want. Because sometimes we can be so caught up in the I don't want this that we
Hmm.
haven't even created space to, well, what would be after this? And that scares a lot of people, not having control.
Yes. And I think sometimes, there are reasons that women and men have for not making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that sometimes that's okay to not make a
Absolutely.
decision. Yet I think that your point is very well taken, that finding the clarity of what you would love, what would you want, what would it look like if, is a question to ask yourself because it provides you the time to get clear. And so maybe the decision isn't meant to be made right now.
Right.
The clarity needs to come first.
Yes. And not making a decision is a decision.
Exactly. That is the decision.
Right. And it's okay. It's okay to say, I am not ready to deal with this now. I need some time and space. And it's, as you said, then bringing in some clarity of what could this look like otherwise.
Yes.
Because a divorce or a job change or a move
Right.
are all big decisions
Yes.
and nothing to be, it's not to be done rashly.
Hmm.
And yet, there are times if you're actually in real danger, you need to do something quickly. This is more about
Yes, that's true.
the fear of the unknown can
Right.
keep us stuck in a situation that we know isn't healthy.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's just acknowledging that I'm in this unhealthy situation.
Right.
Something needs to change. I don't know what.
And I don't know how.
Right.
Okay, not to know how.
We're not always supposed to know how.
Right.
Sometimes the how is like the universal 2x4.
Right. Exactly. And that can be the best way.
Mm-hmm.
I also think this is how I developed Seasons of the Soul, which is my self-mastery process.
Mm-hmm.
And I developed it so that change has a more grounded, focused center so that it allows you the time and the space and to recognize your rhythm within it, to see how flow feels through
Mm-hmm.
change.
Mm-hmm.
So change becomes less scary and feels more grounded.
I love that because I think sometimes people, when they have a big decision ahead of them, think that something needs to happen right away
Yeah.
and it all needs to be done and just wrapped up in a bow. And I've seen this happen with other breast cancer patients. Like
Mm.
I just want it out of my body, and I want, but like there's other things in here that could be healed
Right.
while you're also going through this journey. And so we're so quick to, and even leaving a relationship.
Hmm.
I left husband number one, and a year later, I met number two. And I hadn't really looked at, nor do I think I was ready,
Right.
some of the stories that were connected there.
Hmm.
So we think we're giving ourselves time, and yet if we're not being reflective,
Right.
we are apt to repeat those patterns
Yes.
that sometimes we're not even really aware of. But it's the why do I keep getting this kind of relationship? Why do I
Right.
keep working for these same kind of people?
Hmm.
And like those are some of the things that we can look at,
Hmm.
say, oh,
That's
and
about
we,
giving us space, right? Giving
yeah,
ourselves the space and
mm-hmm.
not, yet that space feels very uncomfortable.
It does because we don't have a tight grip on on our
Right.
life.
Right.
And it's like, but if we were to put water, when we put water in the palm of our hand,
Yeah.
when we're trying to have a tight grip, we're squeezing all of the water out and we have
Yeah.
nothing left.
Yeah.
And yet, when we allow the water to sit, it can reflect the sun
Hmm.
or the moon or the sky or evaporate or sparkle or it can be many, many different things depending on where we are. And like that's some of the magic we can tap into.
Ah, yes. Yes. And you can feel that energy rising if you allow it to breathe.
Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be done yesterday.
Right. It doesn't.
If you're in a toxic environment or relationship, you
Hmm.
already know it's toxic.
Right.
Like give yourself the space to
Hmm.
move through the change So you can breathe while you're doing it. You can put together a plan. You can move through it with more grace. And forgive yourself for the decisions you made that got you to where you are.
Hmm. Some of those decisions, they're influenced, they're influenced by
Absolutely.
all the things we just spoke about,
Mm-hmm.
a family line, a childhood, patterns that, and responses to those patterns that have kept us safe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our mind, our bodies are amazing in the way
Yes.
that, your mind, your ego working with you to come in to protect you, to create, perceptions that allow you to see something a certain way. And, I mean, there's a process of how that happens. It's repetitive and,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah, blah. Yet, the end result is amazing.
It is. And our ego is trying to keep us safe. It works
Right.
on based on what it knows.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's part of what keeps us in patterns because if we're
Yeah.
making decisions based on only what we know and what we've experienced,
Hmm.
that's why we continue to
To
repeat
do
those.
this.
It's we don't realize sometimes how much of a hamster wheel we create for ourselves.
Hmm.
And it's okay. So many of us we've been taught from an early age to not trust ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where I think this journey in midlife is so powerful of we're coming back to the trust,
Hmm.
with the true trust
Right.
within ourselves, not based on an outside position of do I trust that person? Do I trust that outside influence?
Hmm.
I can use discernment to
Hmm.
decide what I take in and what I don't.
Yeah.
And yet, this whole thing of creating our own strong personal boundaries is really us standing in the core and the truth of who we are,
Yeah. Yeah.
less and less um, influenced
Hmm.
by the outside world.
Hmm. And the more clear you are on understanding what you value, the easier your boundaries become.
Yes,
And they're not about setting something. You don't have to push yourself or force yourself to create something because you know what you value.
absolutely. And so many of us were taught that boundaries are rules and
Hmm.
boundaries are not rules.
Yeah.
And
No.
that could be a whole nother rabbit hole we
Right.
go
Yeah.
down another. It's I have trainings about this, and it's going to
Yeah.
be one of my next books. It's yes, you're not supposed to hit your sibling, and don't touch the stove, and don't take candy from the person in the van.
Be
And
kind.
yet, boundaries are one of going back to that family discussion of using that word makes me feel uncomfortable. Please don't use it.
Hmm. So, since we're moving into this subject, I have one last question.
Okay.
And it's around your first book, The Message in a Bottle, and it speaks to finding hope in the middle of chaos, right? So, what would you say to a woman who feels she's holding her entire life together on the surface? And we've touched on this a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
while everything is falling apart on the inside. What is her, we've talked about clarity. What one thing, though, in the very beginning, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a doing task, what would you say to her?
But it is a doing task. And I have an analogy that goes with this. Write out your to do list. Everything that you have on your list that you think you need to do.
Hmm.
And then identify which of those are really yours. Or have you taken it on because the other person isn't doing it and you want it done?
Hmm.
I use the analogy of I'm a scuba diver, certified scuba diver. And if you're doing an 80-foot dive
Hmm.
and you're going down to depth and giving away your air as you're going to depth, and you find out when you're down at wherever you're going You have no more air in your tank. 80 feet is a really long way up, back up to the surface.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to take a stop at 30 feet to allow the nitrogen in your body to regulate so
Hmm.
you don't get the bends.
Yeah.
So I like using this analogy instead of the one of the mask on the airplane.
Hmm.
Because even if you're at sometimes the bottom of a really deep pool and you look up to the top, even the 20 feet can seem like a long way.
Yeah.
80 is that's a long way. That's how much of our time and our energy and our effort and your to-do list is even like what are the repetitive thoughts that are going through my mind? Where from a mental perspective is my energy going?
Yeah.
Because we can be worried about a family member, but that is also where we get to use a 12-step principle of detachment with love.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can send love to a person and know that I am not responsible for them. And
Yeah.
when we try to put a bubble, this is one of the big lessons in the message in the bottle. I tried to put a bubble around my second husband to get him to try not to drink.
Mm.
And yet all it did was make it easier for him, and I took on all of the energy for his journey and his healing and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, it's no wonder my blood pressure went through the roof.
Right.
So sometimes we need to allow people to hit their own bottom
Hmm.
because they're going to hit it eventually anyway.
Right.
But I didn't want my marriage to end, all these other things. I was trying to control
Yeah.
everything around me.
Hmm.
So it's really of where's your time, where are your thoughts going, and writing that out and taking an honest look of I I may not want this situation to end, and yet I am doing more for him than he is for himself. So it can be eye-opening, and sometimes looking in the mirror is not fun, as we've talked about.
Hmm.
And yet doing that honest inventory,
Yeah.
and then if there was one thing you wanted to change on that list, pick don't try to change everything all at once. We can't.
Right.
But if you were to shift one thing, let go of one thing, what would that be?
Yeah. Sometimes it's good to ask yourself that question, what on this list brings me most peace?
Mm-hmm.
What would bring me more peace?
Yes. Because it's not just, to your point, it's not just about letting go.
Hmm.
It's filling that with peace,
Hmm.
serenity, a little bit of time, maybe even
Yeah.
to meditate or take a walk, do a walking meditation out
Right.
in nature.
Bring me joy.
Meditation doesn't always have to be,
Yeah, right.
it's, and I love meditation, all forms,
Yeah.
but it's really, it's flipping that.
Hmm.
Yes, I feel like I have this burden. I have this thing
Hmm.
on my list. What's the opposite? Or
Yeah.
what comes in
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
letting that go?
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really useful and really helpful for women that are in that place of, you know, I don't know what to do about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in that position many a times. And yeah, I think we all
Yeah,
have, right?
yeah.
So is there anything else that you would like to share before we wrap up?
Mm. I'm listening for what wants to come through. Trust yourself.
Mm.
Trust your intuition. We receive the nudges all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not a mental game. It's not just mindset and action.
Hmm.
And sometimes it is you can even say this out loud. I don't know what to do. Please guide me.
Yeah.
And you could be talking to God or spirit or the universe or consciousness or your pen.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then the answer may not come through right away,
Mm-hmm.
but the simple act of asking
Yes.
opens the door for the right answers to come through for you.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure speaking with you today. So thank you so much.
I loved our conversation, and I know there's so many rabbit holes we could go
I know
down.
we
And
could have gone down several others. We just,
I know,
steered it back to what
yeah,
we had agreed to talk about today. And I'm glad that we did because I think your
yes,
books are really helpful for people or women to understand themselves in a deeper way. So those of you out there listening to us, Stephanie has a couple of books out.
mm-hmm.
The Impact of Silence, Self-Mastery Practices for Women. And keep in mind that is where she has the practice of your family tree, which is genius. Love that. And her first book was The Message in a Bottle, Finding Hope and Peace Amidst the Chaos of Living with an Alcoholic. So I'd like to thank you. And please don't forget that Stephanie is also the founder of The Way of the Diamond Warrior. And I will be sure to have your links to your website. Would you like to state where people can find you the easiest?
Absolutely. And it is the website
Okay,
wayofthediamondwarrior.com. And there's also a free assessment that we can include the link for that in the show
great.
notes. And it's the What's Stopping You. It's
Great.
5 questions that go into some of what it is that we've talked about
Mhm.
and give it, the person receives a report and some things that they can look at to shift some of what they think might be in the way.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. So be sure to check all of that out so that you can get in touch with Stephanie if her work is really speaking to you and check out her books. You can always start there. So thank you, Stephanie. I loved having our conversation today.
Me as well. Thank you so much, Josette.
You're welcome.